Well, we made it to the end of the week. It is the Friday edition show here at Gulf Coast Weather Solutions. Thanks for tuning in with us here this morning. We see some moisture and we see some isolated showers, mainly offshore. In fact, it's going to look very active offshore, but as it really gets to our coastline and the further north that it goes, it's just going to get mixed out very quickly because we have lots of dry air on the mid to upper levels. So even though you see lots of moisture kind of surging towards our coastline and getting into our region, that dry air is going to mix it out pretty good. I mean, typically we would say, oh, this is going to be a 50 to 60% type of coverage day. Lots of moisture coming in, but all that dry air is going to keep us really capped off around 10 to likely just 20% coverage towards the coast. And the further north that you go, north of the I-10 corridor, likely going to be 10% or less. Going to manually do this for a second. Check out the flash flooding that's going on the last 2 days. This is 900 to 1,000 miles long. And I mean, we've got anywhere from 10 to 15 flash flood warnings ongoing. I mean, just training one after another. Some areas 10 to 15 inches of rain so far. We've seen flash flood emergencies. It's just insane how long of a stretch this is. We're not dealing with any of that, but just very interesting how all of that is ongoing. The jet stream is far towards the north this time of year. That jet stream starts coming further southward as we get into the fall and winter. So all the action is far towards the north, not much going on in our neck of the woods. High pressure is pretty much dominating the Gulf. This is one of the reasons we're kind of seeing this flow. We also have an upper low over here in Mexico, but you're seeing this surge of moisture kind of push into our region, but look at all this gold and brown. That is just lots of dry air, especially on the mid to upper level. So it's a battle of dry air and moisture. We're going to see the showers hit our coastline, and then they're just kind of going to fall apart a little bit. Still expecting from Houston, Beaumont, Port Arthur, somewhat towards Lake Charles. We're expecting 10 to possibly up to 20% coverage. Anything further north than that, you're going to have a really hard time because all that dry air is just not going to allow it. You can see the warm, moist air is definitely along the coast of the I-10 corridor. Low to mid 80s down towards the coast. Thanks for sponsor of Silsbee Ford. And then you can see 80 degrees over here at Houston, 78 in Beaumont, 75 in Lake Charles. Further north, goodness, the further north that you go, it's fairly interesting. You can find 72, 73 degrees, but several areas already into the upper 70s. So we're definitely all over the place on the temperature department. But I tell you what's not all over the place is the forecast for today. It's going to be a pretty much hot day and mostly dry. We'll see these showers start hitting our coastline, trying to go a little bit further towards the I-10 corridor. Around 10 to 20% coverage for the I-10 corridor down towards the coast. Anything further north than that, you look to be really 10% or less. So pretty much this doesn't look like a bad day at all, construction or outdoor wise. Still going to be a hot day. We're going to get into the middle to upper 90s. This is actually the 92. It's not catching that 94, 95, 97 because that's realistically between like 1 and 3 p.m. But it's going to be a hot afternoon, especially that heat index. What's not hot is the tropics. It is having a hard time right now with the dry air and wind shear. The Caribbean, lots of wind shear. The Gulf, absolutely quiet and shut down. That's exactly what we want to see. Tropical environment remains hostile with dry air and wind shear. This is thumbs up, great news. In fact, if you've been watching the show, we've been talking about these two areas. Notice how the odds have decreased. This is now just a 20% chance of developing the next 5 to 7 days. I keep saying it. This is some of the strongest wind shear I've ever seen in the Caribbean as it continues getting to the Leeward Islands really this weekend, bringing some showers and some thunderstorms. By the time it crosses over, that shear is going to just make this more rain for parts of Puerto Rico and then getting into more of the islands. No hurricane, no tropical, nothing expected from wave number 1. Wave number 2 has also lost somewhat of its odds. It will get closer to the Leeward Islands somewhere around Tuesday, Wednesday, or possibly even Thursday of next week, depending on how fast it is. But the dry air and the wind shear is going to continue keeping this kind of in check. We'll see if it gets a little bit better organized, but even then, if we continue to go down the road, the dry air, even land interaction, wind shear, this is going to give it a hard time. Now, what we will continue to keep watching, satellite cuts off right here, but you have to know that there is more waves. Here's another one right here. Here's another one right here, possibly another here. And I'm sure there's more even ongoing. The further, east that you go into Africa, there's probably even more tropical waves that are going to be setting up, and we'll be watching them in the next couple of weeks. Remember, August 20th is really kind of the start for peak hurricane season. The most activity is around September 10th, so we're getting to that time frame, but right now, it's a lot of good news because dry air and wind shear is definitely on our side. Even when we go to the Futurecast, you look at the European model data, there's wave number 1. I mean, you don't even see much of it. It just gets shredded to pieces, bringing much needed rain from the Leeward Islands to really more islands just in general. High pressure ridge over here towards our, region of the United States and the Gulf. Even's going to shove wave number 2 even further westward, and even then, it's just going to have a hard time. If this thing wants to get developed, it's got to go further towards the north, and even then, there's a weakness. This looks to steer away from the United States. So even if it tries to find a way to get organized, I just don't see this going towards the United States, the Gulf, the Caribbean. Nothing's being a problem. So the next 7 to 10 days, good news. I don't see any issues at all. I mean, even when we put this in motion, zoom out, you can't even see much of anything. Seeing some much needed rain, that is about it. Dry air and wind shear keeping everything in check. We'll keep watching it, but right now, nothing going on. Switch Electric showing us we do have a lot going on over here in our neck of the woods. It's hot. It's heat. Not really giving us a lot of storms. It's just going to make it hot. Hopefully, this is our last big heat stretch of August. We're getting to September. This is when we start seeing less, sunlight. Let's see what the sunset is today. 7:58. 2 days ago, it was 8 o'clock. So we're losing the daytime every single day. And because of that, we're going to eventually start seeing those temperatures get a little bit cooler every day, start seeing more fronts. So I think this probably is one of our biggest high-pressure ridges that we'll see to kind of close out summer as we start getting more into September. But all I'm just trying to show is this high-pressure ridge is going to be in control the next 5 to 7 days. And that brings us to our rainfall outlook. Today is realistically our best chance of rain, and even then, it is pretty limited, around 20%. This weekend, not expecting any rain. If you do see any rain, it should be around 10% or less. Monday and Tuesday, still pretty isolated, and as we get into middle to the end of next week, high-pressure ridge still somewhat in control. Don't see anything bona fide, pretty much rainfall-wise at all. Look at the model right now. I mean, you look at this again. I mean, you're like, wow, that is a very active day, right? 50, 60% coverage? No, not at all. That dry air is going to really just kind of hit all this moisture, and it hits a wall and mixes all this out. So the coastline, maybe you get up to 30% coverage for Galveston and High Island, but still keeping it around 20% coverage. I think this dry air is going to give this a hard time. Houston, Beaumont, Lake Charles, Port Arthur, we're looking at 10 to 20% coverage. Anything further north than that, maybe around 10% or less. This is somewhat of more realistically a dry day for majority of us. If you're going to see the potential for some showers and thunderstorms, it's realistically closer to the coast. And this afternoon, main headline is going to be the heat, especially through the weekend into early next week, middle to several areas into the upper 90s. Look at Lufkin and some of them areas at the 100-degree mark. Your only relief for the heat is going to be down towards the coast at 20% coverage. Anything further north, good luck. I just don't see storms really getting your way. Thanks for sponsor of Silsby Ford. And then the UIL wet bulb globe temperature for today. It is going to be a hot one into the upper 80s to near 90 degrees, so I'm sure there'll be some breaks and all of that. I don't know how UIL has been handling it. I need to call some coaches to see how all that's been going on. And then overnight tonight, what we see this time of year, middle to upper 70s, several areas into the low to mid 80s. And then here we are for our 7-day forecast for Southeast Texas. The biggest takeaway is that the heat is going to continue to keep building. In fact, we're going to get into several areas into the upper 90s. I mean, look at Sunday and Monday, 97 degrees. So we're going to continue to heat up, and range is not looking good the next 5 to 7 days. Very, very low odds. If you get the rain, go to the lottery. Go play the lottery. You just won the rain lottery, so go play the lottery. Keep the luck going, I guess. Same thing for Southwest Louisiana. I mean, you got a little bit better, I guess, rain chances, but it's still limited at 10% coverage. So biggest story is going to be the heat index, and the high-pressure ridge that's building in. Even the tropics looks quiet. So weather-wise right now in our neck of the woods is pretty quiet. But even though it's still quiet, it's a good time to go download the free Gulf Coast Weather Solutions app. It will keep you updated once things do get more active, maybe in a couple weeks. But y'all have a wonderful Friday. Thanks for tuning in to the Friday edition show. We'll have more posts throughout the day, especially talking about tropics, which doesn't look much right now. Y'all stay cool. Have a wonderful Friday. Have a great weekend. And once again, thanks for tuning in to Gulf Coast Weather Solutions.
Gulf Coast Weather Solutions is sponsored by...
We don't know what the weather is going to be like around here. I do get really anxious during storms.
That's why they chose HailGuard. When performance leads, confidence follows. Backed by the first and only asphalt shingle system with a hail warranty.
That just gives us more peace of mind.
This is the only asphalt product on the market that has the manufacturer warranty targeting the hail damage, and it gives me a lot of confidence as a contractor.
Engineered for enhanced impact performance. Built to protect homes and reputations. HailGuard shingles. Built for hail.